Hey guys, it's Bella. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. I hope you guys are all having an incredible day today. It's a very gloomy, rainy day here in Brisbane. No better time to sit down and talk about a crazy story. You guys are gonna be shook. So grab a snack, settle in, because this one is a wild ride, start to finish, insanity. Just quickly before we get into it, I want to thank today's sponsor Audible for making this video possible, and there actually is an audiobook on this case as well called Poison Candy. It's by Elizabeth Parker and Mark Ebner, which is really interesting. I definitely recommend checking it out if you do want to hear any more about this case. Audiobooks are just the best. I have one on all the time, everything I do, like whether I'm driving, cleaning, working out, even literally when I'm in the shower, I have audiobooks on because I just love the background noise. And Audible members also get access to their Plus catalog, which has thousands of audiobooks, Audible originals, podcasts, guided fitness and meditation programs, sleep tracks. Like, there is really something for everyone and every mood too. Like, whether you feel like listening to a psychological thriller, some true crime, some fantasy, some romance, whatever tickles your pickle. Audible members also get one free credit every month that is good for any title in the premium selection of bestsellers and new releases, which you get to keep forever. So if you guys are interested in checking Audible out, you can get a 30-day free trial and a free audiobook if you go to audible.com/bellafiore, or you can also text Bella Fiore to 500 500. I will leave all of the information in the description down below, and let's go ahead and get into this case. So today we're going to be talking about Dahlia and Michael Dippolito, and this case took place in 2009 in Boynton Beach, Florida. So Michael Dippolito was born on the 18th of December in 1970 in Philadelphia, and both of his parents kind of struggled with drug addiction, so he was mostly raised by his grandparents. Unfortunately, he did develop his own problems with drugs and alcohol abuse when he was pretty young. Like, by the age of 15, he was in rehab, and he managed to stay sober for about 5.5 years after that, but then he relapsed in his early 20s and started dealing crack. And then eventually he relocated to Florida in 1997 when he was 26, and he was actually arrested shortly after this for offering an undercover officer $15 for sex, but he pled guilty. He was released. He met this woman named Karen, and they had a baby together. And then I don't really know what happened between them, but they didn't stay together, and he ended up dating another woman named Maria. And he started working as a salesman at this sketchy telemarketing company that was basically stealing people's money, right? They would call them up, they would ask them to invest in the foreign exchange market, and then they would just take their money. So when they went bust, he actually started up his own like sketchy telemarketing company, basically, you know, doing the same thing, stealing people's money. And with all of the money that he stole and made from this, he would spend it all on like jewelry and hotel rooms and clothing, and he actually spent more than $6,000 on sex phone hotlines. And he was actually arrested for this in 2002, and he was convicted of unlicensed telemarketing communications fraud and grand theft, and he was sentenced to 2 years in prison and then was released in 2005 on probation. And he had a 28-year probation period. So for the next 28 years of his life, he would have to report everything to his probation officer, pretty much, like where he was living, who he was living with, what he was doing, pretty much everything. And he wasn't allowed to travel without permission or anything like that. And he was also ordered to pay $220,000 in restitution, which obviously he couldn't do all at once. So basically he would have to pay that in installments over the next 28-year period. So after he was released from prison, he moved in with his girlfriend Maria, and he started using drugs again. So they split up because, you know, she was not into all of that. And so he actually got clean, and they, like, you know, moved back in together, and he was going to support meetings and groups and getting counseling to help with his addiction, overcome his addiction. He got a job at a marketing company, and he and Maria got married in July of 2007. And then later that year, he actually started his own marketing company called Mad Media, except this company was actually legit, unlike his last one. And he did pretty well from that. He made some good money, like he was living pretty comfortably. And then in October of 2008, he met Dalia Muhammad, and she was 20 26 years old at the time, and she was actually an escort that he had booked while his wife Maria was out of town, and they hit it off right away. They had a ton in common, and so he booked for her to come back the very next night, and she ended up staying the night free of charge. And so he actually divorced his wife Maria. She came back a couple of days later, and he's like, I'm moving out, I want a divorce. And then 2 months later, he proposed to Dahlia with a $26,000 engagement ring. Go hard or go home, am I right? So I'll quickly tell you guys a little bit about Dahlia, give you the rundown. So she was born on the 18th of October in 1982, and she was born in New York, but she was raised with her 2 younger siblings in Boynton Beach in Florida. When she was 18, her parents divorced, and it seemed pretty messy. Like, apparently her dad had a girlfriend on the side, and after the divorce she lost contact with her dad, but she and her mum Rhonda and her siblings stayed really close, and they all stayed in Boynton Beach. When she was 19, she started to get into sex work, and she worked in a few different massage parlors in Florida and California because she moved to California for a little while with her fiance at the time. Right, this is before Michael, so not Michael. It's kind of unclear what she did over the next few years, but she did go to college, she got a real estate license, she was living in California for a while, and she got married, and then she divorced the guy. She took the $40,000 ring he bought her, the brand new Mercedes he'd bought her, and some of his money, and then she moved back to Florida, and that is where she met Michael Dippolito. So Michael's divorce to his first wife Maria settled on the 28th of January in 2008, and that very same day he went and bought a townhouse for him, Dalia, and their 2 dogs, one of which was named Bella. Love that my name is such a popular dog's name. Anyway, Dalia was actually the realtor for that sale, so she got a commission off the townhouse that he had bought for them, which I mean, I guess makes sense, right? Like, if you're gonna buy a house and you've got a realtor wife, then you may as well. And then 5 days later, so 5 days after his divorce settled, he and Dalia went and got married at the Palm Beach County Courthouse. So leaving absolutely zero time for the dust to settle. But they described their relationship as very sexual. They partied a lot. They liked to have a lot of fun, and they were both obsessed with reality TV and maybe getting on reality TV one day. And after moving into their new place, they settled into a pretty set routine because Michael was obviously trying to stay clean, and a routine really helped with that. So he started running his business from home, while Dahlia, you know, she was pretty much just chilling. Like, she was going out to hair and tanning salons, and she was going shopping and working out, and then I think like occasionally she would go out for a few hours to do like real estate things and sell houses and that sort of thing. And then in early March of 2009, like 10 police officers showed up at Michael and Dahlia's townhouse because Michael's probation officer had received 3 anonymous phone calls from neighbors claiming that Michael was dealing steroids and ecstasy from the house. And Michael was so shocked by the whole thing because he had been out of prison for years by this point, and he'd never, you know, had to deal with anything like this. He'd never experienced anything like this. Obviously, he knew that random raids and searches of the houses could happen, but it had never happened to him in all of his years that he had been on probation. So the police searched the house and they found diddly squat. Absolutely nothing. And then on the 16th of March, the police get an anonymous phone call from a woman, and she basically tells them that there's somebody dealing drugs from a grey Chevy Tahoe SUV at the Ritz-Carlton in Manalapan. So it's only like 6 miles from Michael and Dahlia's place. And police go to the Ritz, they check it all out, and they found that the Chevy Tahoe belonged to Michael and that he and Dahlia had spent the weekend at the Ritz. And Michael again was like, what the heck is going on? But he's like, you know what, go ahead, have a look through the car, I've got nothing to hide. So police have a little looky and they find nada. Nothing. Zip. Diddly squat. And then like 2 weeks later, on the 29th of March, a specialist narcotics team shows up at the City Place shopping mall in Palm Beach where Michael and Dahlia are shopping because they'd gotten another anonymous call saying that a grey Chevy Tahoe was parked in the car park of the mall and it had, you know, apparently a ton of drugs in it. So Michael is really upset because he's like, what is going on? Why is this happening again? But he's really polite to police. He's like, go ahead, search the car. And they get sniffer dogs and everything this time. They have a real good look in the car, and they actually found cocaine this time. It was in a cigarette box and it was hidden under the spare tire of the car. And Michael was just totally shocked. He started crying and he was like, I've been sober for 6 years. I have no idea how these got there. And then he started telling them that he believes it may have been his ex-wife, Maria, who may have planted the drugs because she was, pissed about the divorce or whatever story he was telling. And he spoke to an officer named Mary Hopper, and she believed him. She was like, there's no way he's lying. Definitely seems like he's telling the truth. So they didn't charge him. They didn't arrest him. He was free to go, which is honestly crazy to me. I've just never heard of anything like that, like a former drug addict. They find drugs in his car and then they're like, okay, we believe they weren't yours just based on your word. Anyway, after this, they had one last surprise visit because the police had apparently gotten some anonymous phone calls from neighbors saying that they had heard, banging and yelling at the house, and that they had seen Michael drag Dahlia by her hair into the house, and they were worried for her safety. So 2 officers showed up at the house and they questioned both Michael and Dahlia separately, and both of them said they had a bit of an argument the night before about money, but that was it. There was no physical violence or anything, and there were no injuries on Dahlia, so they left. And then later that night, Dahlia also told Michael that she was actually pregnant with their baby. Now, even though the police stopped showing up at their house, weird stuff kept happening to Michael and Dahlia. On the 1st of May, Dahlia came home and she told Michael that she had received a call from a Detective Hurley from the Boynton Beach Police Department, and he had apparently told her, I know what you've been doing, I know what you've been up to, and you should confess to your husband. So Michael and Dahlia go down to the Boynton Beach. Oh, this is why there's so many cuts in my videos, because it's me saying things like Boynton Beast. The Boynton Beast Boys. Anyway, they go down to the Boynton Beach Police Department and, they want to confront this Detective Hurley, but they were told that there was no Detective Hurley. He didn't exist. He had never worked there. No Detective Hurley had ever worked there. And then a few weeks later, they went for an early morning workout together, and when they went back, to leave, they went back to Michael's car, there was a note on the windshield of his car, and let me read it to you. It said, "Bring $40,000, 9:30 a.m. back to this space and put it under the car behind you. Do not tell anyone, especially your wife. I will tell you all that has happened to you, is happening to you, and what will happen on Friday. Tell no one, come alone." And this note was signed from, somebody who was trying to help you, and then they left their number down the bottom. So Dahlia calls this number and some crazy woman apparently answers and threatens to kill both Michael and Dahlia. And they went and reported this to police, but as far as I know, I don't really think anything was done about it. But Michael was obviously really sketched out. There's all of these weird things happening, and obviously just a few years before, he was not really in a good place, and he was involved with some bad people, and I think he was involved with the Bonanno crime family, which is like an organized crime group, and they were involved in the whole, telemarketing investment scam thing. 2 of the members were arrested, but they were out on probation, so he was just worried that, they were out to get him or destroy his life or whatever, and he was getting really paranoid, which I mean, rightfully so, probably, if you think an organized crime mafia family is out to get you. And Michael actually said, I wish they would just break my car windows or even just shoot me and just get it over with. So then on the 5th of August, sometime before 6 a.m, Dahlia heads off to the gym, and normally her and Michael would go to the gym together, but he had liposurgery on his back just 2 weeks before, so he wasn't able to go that morning. And while Dahlia is at the gym at 6:40 a.m, she gets a call from Detective Sergeant Frank Ramsey from the Boynton Beach Police Department, and he tells her that there's been an incident at her house and she needs to come home right away.
No, ma'am, I need to talk to you. It's very urgent when you come home. It involves your husband. There's been an incident. Okay, can you come right back to your residence, please?
Yeah, I'm leaving right now. Is it okay?
Ma'am, I'll tell you everything you need to know when you get here, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
So she leaves and she rushes home, and when she gets there, there's like a ton of police there. There's camera crews, you know, her house has been cordoned off. It's all very crazy. And Sergeant Ramsey goes up to her and he's like, you know, are you Dahlia? Is your husband Michael Dippolito? He's actually been killed. And she just bursts out crying. Obviously, she's hysterical. She's heartbroken. Her husband is dead.
Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, he's been killed. He's been killed, ma'am. I'm sorry.
No, he's not.
Listen.
No.
Try to calm down. Listen, right now we need to get you to the station.
No.
Okay? Does he have enemies? Is there anyone that would want to hurt him? Okay, who would want to hurt him? Witnesses, Detective Yopi, I need you to take her to the station. I can't. Ma'am, go with these detectives. If you want to help your husband, okay? If you want to help your husband, you need to go to the station with these gentlemen.
So police take her down to the station to try and get some information, you know, ask her who would want to do something like this, who would want to hurt her husband. And while she's there, they actually bring in the man that killed her husband. And she's like, you know, they're like, have you ever seen this man before? This is the man that killed your husband. And she's like, no, like, I've never seen this man before in my life.
Tell us everything you know about who he knows, who he's connected to. Don't worry, we've already taken care of dogs with animal control for right now. Everything's under control. And we'll take care of everything else.
Do you know her?
Put your head up and look at her.
Put your head up.
I've never seen her.
What were you doing coming out of her house? Get him out of here.
Which obviously seems like a really strange thing to do, you know, to bring in the man who murdered her husband just like that, just have him right there, like a meter away from her, seems really odd. Like, it's definitely not a normal thing. And that is because he actually didn't kill Michael. And Michael, surprise, still alive. And the police knew that, because Dahlia was actually the one who had tried to have Michael killed, and the whole thing was set up. And now that you know this, let me just replay that clip of her, you know, being told that her husband is dead, that Michael is dead, because it takes on a totally new meaning. I mean, even before you know that she's in on the whole thing and has tried to have her husband killed, it still is like her acting's not very good. Like, it's kind of like crocodile tears. Like, she doesn't really have any tears, so she just kind of goes, because she can't produce any tears because she's not actually sad.
We had a report of a disturbance at your house, and there were shots fired. Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, he's been killed. He's been killed, ma'am. I'm sorry.
No, he's not.
Listen.
No.
Try to calm down. Listen, right now we need to get you to the station. We need to get you to our police station. I can't let you see him, man. We have to do our job.
I mean, she pretty much doesn't even let Sergeant Ramsey finish telling her that her husband is dead. She's just kind of trying to make noise with her mouth. Not a good actress. Don't quit your day job. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's take it back a little bit so I can explain, you know, the whole backstory here. So basically, 2 weeks after Michael and Dahlia got married, they want to, they want to go traveling. They want to do all the things. So they start looking into having Michael's probation terminated. Michael hires a lawyer who tells him that if he pays off the remaining $191,000 he still owes in restitution, that his probation would be donezo. And so Dahlia offers to pay $91,000 of this restitution, and Michael says, all right, I'll just transfer you the remaining $100,000 so that it's all in one account and we can just transfer the full $191,000 right to the lawyer. Make it easier. So in February and March, he starts transferring her like $6,000, $7,000 every few days, sometimes even twice a day, just, trying to transfer the full $100,000 in smaller transactions. So then Dahlia, once she's got all of the money, she tells Michael that she's transferred all of the money to the lawyer, and she gives him a receipt, except the receipt says that the payment was actually made from an account in the Cayman Islands, and it also said that the payment had been reversed. And Michael's like, looks here like the payment's been reversed, what's going on, can you sort this out? And it gets a little convoluted here, right? So strap in. So a week later, Dahlia gives Michael a cashier's check for for $191,000. And the check itself is actually a major red flag because it's written from Dahlia's friend's husband, Eric Tao, which, I mean, in and of itself, I'm surprised wasn't questioned more at the time. But anyway, so they take this check to Michael's lawyer, and then all of a sudden, right as they're about to hand the check over, Dahlia goes, she snatches it back and she's like, I want my $91,000 back. So Michael's like, you know, all right, whatever. He goes to his safety deposit box and he gets out $140,000 in cash, and he gives Dahlia $91,000 in return for the full restitution check. And then he takes this check to his lawyer to pay, but somehow the check has been changed to $191 instead of $191,000. And so obviously he's like, what the heck? And he calls Dalia, and Dalia's like, oh, I got lunch with Eric earlier, so he must have like swapped them while we were at lunch together. So Eric agrees to cut Michael another check for $191,000 if Michael gives him the $140,000 that he just got out of his safety deposit box, and then he can just pay the remaining $51,000 off, you know, over a set period of time. So they all agree to this. It's all well and good. Michael goes to his lawyer, tells his lawyer what's going on, and his lawyer tells him that if he does this, Eric technically has possession over Michael's house until that $51,000 is paid off. And obviously this whole thing is so complicated. Like, if you guys are following along, I know it's so convoluted, but it's so complicated that Michael's lawyer basically says, see you later, I'm not dealing with this anymore, and he fires Michael as a client. So then Michael goes to meet with a new lawyer, and he hands this new lawyer the check, but because the check is written out to his old lawyer, the new lawyer actually can't accept the check. So then he goes back to Eric, and Eric is like, sorry, I can't actually write you a new check because all of my accounts have been frozen because of all of this unusually high activity, but he agrees to write him another check once his accounts have been unfrozen. But then he never heard from Eric again. So then a few months after that, Dahlia tells Michael that she's found a new lawyer who can help him get on administrative probation while he's waiting to pay off the restitution. So Michael's like, amazing. He goes and meets with this new lawyer, and this lawyer tells him that he should sign over his townhouse into Dahlia's name in case it, you know, has some sort of effect on the administrative probation. So on the 31st of July, he signed the townhouse over to Dahlia. So while she's been working on stealing all of this money from Michael and, you know, stealing his property and getting the property signed over to her, she's also been meeting up with her ex-boyfriend, a guy named Mohammed Shahada. And she first reached out to him on the 17th of March, and she told him that Michael was abusive and she was scared for her life. And they meet up the next day, and she straight up gives this man a Range Rover, which she actually paid for with the money that was going to be used for Michael's restitution. And then she asks him if he knows anyone that can kill her husband, and he's like, no, what the heck is wrong with you? Relax. And then because that doesn't work out for her, she then starts calling the police with anonymous tips that Michael was dealing drugs. So all of those times that the police showed up to the house and, you know, to Michael's car looking for drugs, that was her that called them with those tips. And it was also Dalia who planted the cocaine in the cigarette box under his tire. And she even allegedly tried to murder him herself on the 22nd of July with antifreeze. So she was like researching odorless antifreeze, and she put some in Michael's tea, which he immediately spat out because he was like, that tastes disgusting. But for 10 days after that, he apparently had mouth ulcers and diarrhea and really bad stomach cramps, which he had just chalked up to being, you know, a side effect of his liposurgery. So then on the 31st of July, so the day that the townhouse was signed over to her, she goes and meets up with her ex Muhammad again, and she asks him, can you kill my husband? And he's obviously like, not happening, no, please leave me alone. And he actually goes to the police, and the police are like, all right, let's get some audio, let's get some video recordings in your car, and you can go and meet up with her again, and we'll get the whole thing on camera. So the next day they meet up, and the whole thing is on camera. camera, obviously. She basically tells him that she can't divorce Michael because, you know, he's friends with some sketchy people, he's, you know, in with an organized crime group, and so if she divorces him, they'll come after her. And so he agrees to put her in contact with a hitman, but says he'll need $1,200 for the gun, and he'll also need a clear photo of Michael and the townhouse, you know, just so they're all on the same page, they know they've got exactly the right guy. And she gives them all of that. She gives him the $1,200, she gives him the photos, and she tells him she wants the hit to be completed by the 5th of August.
Okay, well, all I'm trying to say is this guy's a professional. It's not all he does is get it done, that's it. Right. I know him, you know, like, he's good at it. Honestly, you're worth seriously, you know, killing over that much money?
It's not even over the money. Like, it's not even about money.
His mom is not going to get suspicious of you or anything like that?
Why me? You know what? Knowing somebody, you know, nobody's going to be able to point a finger at me. I have a picture of him right now. You're sure everything else is okay?
Yeah.
You're sure?
Yo, what more sure can you want? You're planning a murder. Come on, stop.
So she meets up with the hitman on the 3rd of August, and this hitman is obviously an undercover cop, so the whole thing is recorded, there's video of it, there's sound of it, and she says to him, right, she goes, you know, I'm a lot tougher than I look. You may be thinking, oh, what a cute little girl, but I'm not. You just have to laugh, don't you? Big tough Dahlia. Killed my husband for me.
I'm a lot tougher than what I look. I know you're like, oh, what a cute little girl, whatever. You know, but I'm not.
Anyway, he tells her that when he leaves, she can't change her mind. That's it. And she tells him she is 5,000% sure that she wants to have her husband murdered, and they agree that the hit is going to take place at 6:30 a.m. on the 5th of August.
How sick and you got everything going?
Well, it's up to you.
I mean, I need to come like 15.
When it's done, you know, you have to have an option to change your mind.
I'm positive, like 5,000%. Like,
Okay.
no, there's no, like, I'm determined
Definitely
already.
you wanna
I'm
do this
positive, like 5,000%.
And also what's even crazier about this whole thing, if it wasn't already crazy enough, is that the hitman tells her it's going to cost $7,000, but that she can pay after the hit has already taken place. And she goes, you know what? He's going to go to the bank to get $10,000 out to give to his business partner. So why don't you go there, murder him after he gets the money out, take the money, and then it'll just look like a botched robbery. So she was going to have this man pay for his own murder. I mean, it didn't end up happening that way. They organized for it to be at the house because the reality TV show Cops was actually going to be filming with the Boynton Beach Police Department at that time. So they were like, hey, why don't we just film this whole thing? This is crazy. And so they ended up organizing for the, you know, hit to take place at the house. So the 5th of August rolls around, and as she had organized with the hitman, she leaves at 6 a.m. and goes to the gym, and she leaves the front door unlocked for him so that he's got easy access to go in there and kill her husband. And she had also taken like all of her valuable items from the house with her. So she'd taken her designer handbags, her $25,000 engagement ring, her $8,000 worth of designer jewelry, because she didn't want the hitman to steal her stuff, of course, because they were going to make it look like a botched robbery. So after she leaves, the police go into the house and they wake Michael up and they tell him, look, you're not in any trouble, but we need you to come down to the police station with us because your wife is trying to have you killed. And he's obviously in shock, like what is going on? But he goes down to the police station with them and they show him all of the footage of her, you know, like trying to organize to have him killed. And he tells them, you know what? I'm actually not even surprised. She had obviously stolen a ton of his money, and he actually already like had an inkling that she was the one who planted the drugs in his car. So he just was like, it all makes sense now. So while he's at the station and all of that's going down, also the stuff with Dahlia happens. She's at the gym, she gets a phone call, she comes back to the house and she puts on that, you know, big show for everyone. Gives them a whole performance. And they take her down to the station, they bring in her husband's killer, who is actually, you know, the hitman that she had hired. It's the undercover cop, and she's like, I've never seen this man before. And the police are like, ha ha ha, he's an undercover cop, and we filmed the whole thing. Sorry about it. And then even after that, after she's been caught on camera, they've shown her the footage, they tell her that her hitman is an undercover police officer, she still denies everything.
Well, you know, he's very, he used to be a drug addict, and
What was his drug of choice?
crack.
Crack? You wouldn't want to kill him, I hope. Not at all.
We are fine, like there's nothing.
You're going to jail today for solicitation of murder. You're under arrest. That's an undercover police officer. We filmed everything that you did, recorded everything that you did. You're going to jail for solicitation of first-degree murder of your husband.
I didn't do anything.
Did you hear what I just told you?
I heard what you said, but I didn't.
Everything, listen to me. Everything has been recorded. You were photographed in the convertible when you sat in his car in the front of CVS. What do you want to do?
Like, that is just some next level, like, compulsive lying. Like, that is just some next level compulsive lying. I've never heard anything like it. To still deny it when you're on camera organizing to have your husband murdered. And they let Michael listen to this whole interview with her, right? And then at one point they actually bring him in to let him see her, and he's standing at the door, she's sitting down at the table, and she starts like demanding, come here, Michael, none of it's true, come here.
He's alive.
Come here, please. Come here.
Mike, come here, please. Come here.
3 words to describe Dahlia. Liar, liar, liar.
So then she's taken to the county jail, and while she's there, she calls Michael, and Michael answers because he's like, I've just got to hear this. I've just got to hear what she could possibly say. And he answers the phone, and she just keeps denying everything. Like, she just keeps telling him, it's not true, it's not true. Like, it's literally on video. He's seen the video. The amount that she lies is actually ridiculous. Anyway, he agrees to help her if she would just sign the townhouse back over to his name, and she refuses. Like, this woman tried to have him killed and then has the audacity to say no to him when he's trying to help her out. It's just so crazy. Oh, and then the police find out that in the months where she was organizing to have Michael killed, she had actually been talking to another ex-boyfriend named Mike Stanley. And she had been telling him all of this stuff, everything that was going on, and she even told him that she was actually pretending to be pregnant to distract Michael from the fact that she was stealing his money in his house. And her and Mike actually spoke a lot about that. They spoke a lot about how they were going to steal his money in his house and then get him sent back to prison. So Mike actually helped her place some of those anonymous tips to the police, claiming that Michael was dealing drugs. And to add insult to injury, Mike was actually the one who posed as the lawyer who convinced Michael to sign the townhouse over to Dahlia. And her and Mike constantly told each other about how much they loved each other, they were soulmates, they couldn't wait to be together. And so now police not only had all of this footage of her hiring a hitman to kill her husband, but they also had all of the texts between her and her ex-boyfriend Mike. So the trial against Dahlia started on the 25th of April in 2011, and her defense team came up with the most ridiculous defense ever. They basically tried to argue that Michael was the mastermind behind this whole thing, and that he had set this whole thing up so that they could try and get on reality TV. So she was actually a victim of Michael's and the Boynton Beach Police Department's, hunger for fame. Which, isn't that just so odd? Like, just such an odd defense to say that this man would literally call the cops on himself for drug possession and literally plant drugs in his own car, which could potentially backfire on him and land him in prison. That's the defense you're going with. Anyway, on the 13th of May, she was found guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 20 years in prison. And then let me read you a quote of what Michael said at her sentencing hearing. He said, "If Dahlia would have owned it like a normal person, I would have respected that. But when I get to court, I hear that I want a reality television show. Not only is she saying that, but her lawyers allow it. It's ridiculous. You should have just said space aliens landed and they did it. That would have been a better defense. If she wanted to steal my money and leave me, she should have got a divorce. What was I gonna do? Cry? Who does this? This isn't a wholesome person. This isn't a person that has any regret, any remorse. As soon as we walk out of here, they're filing for an appeal. You know why? Because they think everybody in this room is stupid. That's why." And then on the 30th of July in 2014, Dahlia was actually granted a retrial because she found out that one of the jury members on her first trial actually found out that she had tried to kill Michael with antifreeze, and that information had been deemed inadmissible in court. So she got a whole new trial, and at this trial they tried to argue police entrapment. She basically tried to say that the police had set her up, and this actually resulted in a hung jury. So the whole trial was declared a mistrial. And then her third trial began on the 8th of June, and she was once again found guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder, and her previous 20-year sentence was upheld. But she had actually spent the last 8 years on house arrest while these trials were all going on. So she wasn't even in jail waiting for these trials, and she was given 4 years credit for the years she spent on house arrest. And also in that 8 years that she was, on house arrest, she actually gave birth to a son to a man who was, completely unrelated to the case. And she's set to be released in 2032. So by that time, her son will be 16 years old. And 2032 is actually the same year that Michael's probation was originally meant to end. Thankfully though, Michael was able to move on with his life. On the 5th of June in 2018, he paid off his restitution. So his probation was officially over, and now he has his own real estate company called Atlantic Florida. In 2017, he got engaged to a woman named Gloria, and they bought a house together in Boynton Beach. And in an interview, he said that it was really nice and it was really hard to accept that, after everything he had been through, that something good was actually happening to him. Dalia also tried to appeal her sentence a bunch of times. She even tried to appeal to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the US, but all of her appeals were denied. But that is all from me today. That's everything for this case. I would really love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, because this one was a wild ride, wasn't it? I mean, this woman was unhinged, and the fact that she tried to have Michael pay for his own murder, just insane. But that's it for me today. I really hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!